let's move forward. Let me invite our fourth panel. So the topic of this panel is how can wellness practices be associated with the right clinical result for widespread adoption, effectiveness of wellness programs on mental health. And our eminent panelists for this panel are Ms. Manjari Chanda, owner and founder of Manjari Wellness, Mr. Sahil Pruthi, founder Keto India and Livofy, Mr. Rohit Dingra, founder and CEO, Infinite Health Studio, Ms. Fharzana Siraj, founder of Orange Ray Holistic Private Limited, Mr. Arvind Savargaonkar, CEO of Streben Healthcare, and Mr. Akshara Damle, founder of ManoSamvaada. So, Mr. Akshara is kind enough to accept our request to moderate this session. We welcome you, sir. So, it's over to you, Mr. Akshara.
Thank you so much, and welcome to all the panelists today. We had discussions on various issues, right from rural-urban divide in the space of medical or health services and so on. And now we are gearing up for another very energetic and enriching session on wellness. So wellness is a state of being which is beyond absence of illness. Wellness is understood from multiple perspectives such as physical, mental, social, emotional, environmental, and spiritual wellness. In the modern world, where people are busy achieving their individual aspirations, most people have forgotten to take care of themselves. This has resulted in various health and wellness issues. While communicable diseases are still bothering the world, non-communicable diseases like cancer, diabetes, hypertension, mental health, and so on have been creating issues across all age groups. The cause of concern is they are causing early deaths of people. Even when the situation is grim, a lot of people are still ignorant about their self care. When it comes to issues like mental health, people are still carrying stigma around it and are not open to speaking, including professors, doctors, bureaucrats, policymakers, celebrities, CEOs, and so on. COVID pandemic not only threw light on physical health but also on mental health. So many people have suffered from issues like fear, anxiety, stress, sleeplessness, anger, frustration, irritability, and so on. So let's look at some of the statistics about lifestyle diseases. Indian Council of Medical Research conducted studies on lifestyle diseases and estimated proportion of all deaths due to non-communicable diseases has increased from 37.09% in 1990 to 61.8% in 2016. Cardiovascular diseases affect Indians a decade earlier than their Western counterparts, and nearly 3 million people die of stroke and heart attack. 40% of those who suffer a heart attack are below the age of 55. So in today's panel discussion, let's explore what are the major concerns in the wellness sector, what are the challenges in bringing awareness, how organizations can contribute to employee wellness, and also see how digital technology can help in bringing about a change in the present and the future. So going towards the panelists, I request Sahil to pitch on first on I would like you to see how much the youth are aware at the conscious level about wellness and lifestyle related problems.
Sure, Akshara. First of all, thank you so much for having me on the panel, and excited to kind of share my learnings with the panel. We've been working with people in India and across the globe with regards to a lot of chronic ailments that you mentioned about in the introduction, with regards to whether it's type 2 diabetes, PCOS, hypertension, fatty liver, or even cancer for that matter, right? So, I think on the awareness front, even amongst the youth, the awareness is fairly low, and it's not just, I generally like say this to people that in schools and colleges, there is very little awareness about, what nutrition or food does to our body and what impact it has on the hormones, which eventually cause various chronic ailments, right? And I've seen that extensively, more so with people, especially women in their early ages, becoming prey to PCOS massively, which is becoming a huge problem, where women start facing irregular period cycles, facial hair, acne, and that is largely because the course curriculum does not just talk about the hormonal impact that nutrition supplementation can have on our bodies, right? And how it is not just the right kind of nutrition supplementation can have an impact in a curative manner, but also a preventive manner, both basically, right? And that I see as a major void in with regards to awareness, not just in youth, but people who are elder ages as well, right? Where which I see that is a definite point of concern, and a place where we see a void to kind of create impact in as a company.
Absolutely, I totally agree with you. Going forward, wellness industry is one of the rapidly growing industries today. Fharzana, can you share some challenges faced by you uh, as you are a wellness consultant and founder of Orange Ray?
Thank you, Akshara. Before I talk about my challenges, I'd like to thank ArdorComm Media for having us here and creating this wonderful panel. And a good afternoon to Mr. Chandan, Akshara, and my fellow panelists and all the viewers who are watching this program today. I have been in this wellness industry now for over a decade. And this is a very rapidly growing industry. Currently, it's estimated to be at $4.5 trillion worldwide. And thanks to COVID, because now the focus is on immunity, it's on health and what you eat, how your mental space is, your thoughts are. This industry is expected to grow in the next 2 years by another $1,300 billion. So we are sitting on a huge, huge pie. But the problem in India, what I especially feel, because that's where I am from, is that, though we are going to be relying future on AI intelligence, on apps, on softwares, but the crux of this whole thing is skilled labor. And our labor skill, because it's a human touch, which makes wellness so result oriented, right? Because we are not dealing with, people are not dealing with machines. But the problem is the skill part. Now, where skill comes, there comes education also. So in India, I feel that there is no standardization of education yet. Because today you can see a yoga therapist who has done a master's and a PhD, and you get a yoga teacher, so-called yoga teacher, who does 1 month of 1 hour training every day. So how does the end user differentiate between the two? So two things can happen over this, Either somebody goes to a so-called quack and doesn't get result, and the name yoga and all the allied sciences get a bad name. Or you go to actually a really good person and you keep doubting, and think they are a quack. So I think we really need to appeal to the change makers, whoever makes the law, that we need some standardization, some proper education where yoga and allied sciences are concerned. This could be in naturopathy, it could be in Ayurveda as well. Another thing, what I feel is the sector is so unorganized that there is no pricing over here. Okay, so people quote whatever they want. So that is what happens. The end consumer doesn't know what he or she should be getting at what price, and whether the services are authentic. Are they going to somebody who is, reputed or not? So this is another one thing where the sector needs to get organized. And the third thing which I feel is there is no accreditation for, of course, now we have NABH, we do have QCI, but it's very, very random. It's there are a lot of things which, a lot of people where they are not able to pick out the so-called things and accredit them. And this is again directly impacting our insurance, because today we have very, very few companies who are giving insurance to alternative medicine or wellness industries. And I think that's where we are losing out big time. Of course, there are a lot of new rules come, but I believe they are not enough, because they are also, because I deal with insurance companies, they come to me because they say, ma'am, we don't know whom to insure and whose insurance to pass, because there are no guidelines, So I think there has to be some sort of some proper looking into by the government into all these aspects, because corporates rely heavily on insurance. And if alternate medicine or wellness is not insured, they will just bypass it and go to only mainstream medicine, what it is today, for lack of insurance. And I think that is one area we really need to look at. So these are the challenges I face. I wish the power makers are hearing me now and can make some, genuine changes. So thank you so much for asking this question.
Thank you, Fharzana. I think you have covered multiple issues, right from skilled labor to governance issues to regulation and accreditation and so many other challenges. Moving forward, I would like to continue the discussion with Rohit. As you would agree with me, many wellness modalities are qualitative in nature than quantitative. For some people, results may come quickly, but for some, it may take a while. So, in this context, yoga being one of the ancient wisdoms of our nation, how do you put forward the idea of wellness to the present generation? Taking forward, as Fharzana actually said, that there are 1 month trained yoga teachers and PhD level yoga therapists.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. First of all, thank you so much, Akshara, for the introduction. Thank you, Chandan, and complete team of Ardor to have all of us here. It's really a great unite to be here in terms to our fellow, associates as well. And I feel, and I think I would really understand that looking at this industry, it's been about 9 years with this journey now. And if I talk about in terms to the yoga centric concern, which Fharzana had just spoken about. So we were very I would say just from about a 500 square yard, I would say a small setup. We started training people on ground in terms to yoga. We were very new at that point of time. We used to see a lot of contingencies when people used to call trainers at their home, and we were looking at a studio model being evolved around the country. So that is wherein we had actually started, and over the 9 years, we have become a complete healthcare aggregator pan India and also serving a lot of nations abroad. So primarily, if I talk about the concern, wherein we discuss the piece of the yoga trainers inculcation at different levels, we have been training numerous individuals at home, at studios, and we also send out humongous number of trainers to corporate pan India, wherein we have versatile requirements. The standardization and the organization of the sector is still really missing. That definitely is the concern right now. Because when we move up to corporates, right? Because being from a corporate background myself, when I left the corporate industry back in 2012, I was, looking at these ground problems wherein, we are like stinged to the chair for about 9 hours, 10 hours. The KPO, BPO industries are working for 12, 13 hours as a shift, right? Sometimes they're working complete night, sometimes early morning, Australian shift. There's so many kind of concerns in the corporate space, right? Now, if I really talk about the genuine problem on ground, we are still to tailor make a lot of exercises and practices that can help an individual be fit that we can consider under the wellness segment altogether, right? So if I talk about issues like cervical spondylitis, or neck issues, I would say muscular dystrophy. These are nothing. These are just, something which are, I would say, irrelevant in terms to our lifestyle. It is just about a lifestyle that we, need in our 8 to 9 hours tenure or 10 hours tenure of our life. If you can just take out about 30 to 45 minutes and practice these inculcations, I think it can make a very big difference. So the organization of the segment, of course, is a problem, but it has drastically, I would say, improvised over the years. Because I still remember that time in 2018 when we had been awarded the Limca Book of Records, for doing 2,200 workshops in one day, and it touched 6 people. The only organization in India who has done that. That was really a game changer for us. Because we did not even know that, yes, we could touch 6 lakh lives. But when we actually evaluated it, we really saw we made just a 20% impact or difference in people's lives with yoga. There was so much to do as a journey because yoga has got a half an hour, 1 hour revenue model. It is actually supposed to be a game changer, life changer, or actually an 8% changer. So I would say that wellness is a very big industry. We need to obviously inculcate it with preventive health as well as the fitness, as well as the therapies of other allied sciences. And I think there is a lot that we can look at in the near future.
That's fantastic to look at it. And I think the discussion is going really serious, but at the same time exciting. And once we have understood the idea of yoga, I would like to move towards eating. Eating right is a major problem in the modern world, and food is a major determinant of one's health and wellness. So, Manjari, what is missing in today's meal?
Yeah, hi, Akshara. Good evening, Mr. Chandan. Good evening, everybody who's here. what is missing in today's meal? Everything that should be there. So essentially what has happened is that, when we started practicing nutrition, I started my first hospital job, was with Manipal Hospitals, Bangalore. And when we started practicing nutrition as a part of the therapeutic bit that we were doing in hospitals, it was a very, pushed back sort of thing that there is a nutritionist who comes and she's just a part of the mainstream therapy. And nutrition never got its due at that point of time, 25 years back. Over the years, things changed, and cut to today, we are in a space where there's a lot more that has happened. The bit is that at some point of time, Hippocrates said that food is medicine, but it wasn't really, that sense of the whole thing was not really understood, and people thought that nutrition is just one thing that needs to be done for people to be healthy. Today, we're able to use nutrition in a functional space where we're able to reverse cardiometabolic diseases. Sahil was mentioning in the beginning that that's what they do. But in a clinical settings with cancer, with diabetes, with hypertension, with all forms of autoimmune conditions, neurological conditions, we're able to reverse many of them using food as the main modality. So that becomes your major modality. And then, of course, there are other things that you do parallelly, which include some supplements, some botanicals, some herbals. We also do a lot of alternate, like Fharzana was mentioning, alternate therapies, which include stuff like, colon cleanses and enemas and IVs and antioxidants and a lot more. But the mainstay of the therapy seems to be nutrition. And because it is so powerful and because it is so capable of treating and reversing modern diseases, therefore the potential is huge. The problem is that there is it's still a sort of a, if I could use the word mumbo jumbo sort of a science, where everybody has their own interpretation of it. And it's not really as protocol driven as modern medicine is, So like, antibiotic use in an ICU is extremely protocol driven. There's an entire way to do it. However, the use of food in reversing a disease is not so clearly outlined. And so it's up to people who practice it to adapt it basis their understanding, their learning, their experience, And so there is a huge way to go. But the fact is that people are choosing, reversing diseases than living with diseases. And people will also start choosing not getting cancer than treating cancer, So I have a lot of people coming in when a patient has cancer, a lot of family members, please subtly ask you, how do I not get it? If I have breast cancer, my mother had it, my grandmother had it, I don't want to get it. Can you tell me how not to get it, So that is where the power of wellness is, because we're not just talking about generic wellness. We're talking about serious implications of wellness, where we're talking of treating and managing modern lifestyle diseases. It's huge. The potential is huge. The market is warming up to it. The industry is warming up to it in a big way. I think it just needs to get more organized, more supported. As Fharzana said, that accreditation, sort of insurance. All these are important parts of the whole system. So these also need to fall in place eventually.
Yes, that's very precise. And I think food is also dependent on geography as well. So yeah, there will be, it's very difficult to come out with a uniform set of a diet. Moving forward, as we have already been speaking a lot about non-communicable diseases, Arvind, it's already known that communicable diseases are still bothering the world, but non-communicable diseases have been silent killers and primarily arising out of lifestyle issues. So what needs to be done in this regard? How do you look at this whole space?
Yeah, thanks, Akshara. And at the outset, good afternoon to all the participants, and thanks to Chandra as well as the ArdorComm team for having me here on the panel. Akshara, before answering directly to your question about the communicable and non-communicable diseases, I would probably take one step back. Mainly because you all will agree with me that the recent pandemic just not stirred us, it has shaken us. And that probably triggers me to go about 35,000 feet and try to take a comprehensive view about the whole health and wellness as an area. And you all also will agree with me that probably the solutions would be far more difficult than what we could anticipate. Because this, I think Fharzana, Rohit, both of them have touched that this is a pretty multifaceted area. And then it's at the same time fragmented as well. So how do we approach this? So probably my approach to this would be by asking few questions. So let me start that way. And then I think as the discussion progresses, I think I'll definitely touch upon the communicable, non-communicable diseases. So my question would be, can we get people to do health or wellness planning at an individual level? Let me explain this. I think all of us are aware that we all do our career planning. I think that has now come down even because that provides a livelihood. So it has come down even at the bottom of the pyramid. We all do our lifestyle planning. We know what we aspire to follow certain lifestyle, what kind of house, what kind of area, locality that I will live, what kind of utilities and amenities those could be there at my house. And we plan all of that, right? I think going further, all of us also do financial planning. Because in the midlife, what are those financial resources that I need? At the later life, what are those resources that I need? And we start planning accordingly. We start managing our lives around that. So my question here is, can we do something about our wellness planning? And let me further explain this, is because how this planning happens. I think it all starts with aspirations. We aspire for something. We also look at what are the kind of resources those are available to us. And then we kind of see what abilities that I have to have these kind of aspirations fulfilled. And we use this approach to healthcare planning, because I'm sure, I think nobody will disagree with me when I say health is and wellness is one of the very, very important aspects of our life, right? So looking at that, can I set my own wellness goals? Can I look at what kind of means that I have? And probably set a process in achieving that, because that's something today financial planning has become very, very process driven. And what has happened is we all see that I think as we are aging older and older, I think we are not getting much into the trouble because we have done our financial planning much earlier, right? So probably in my opinion, can we take this approach to health and wellness? And why I am saying this is, through this approach, can we bring all these fragmented and multiple facets together? And probably like Rohit probably was just saying that there has to be a standardization and mechanism, right? So I think probably at this point, I leave this topic here and probably would like to get Akshara, your views, others' views. And I think when I get a next opportunity, I think I'll touch upon, because I think that would be the continuation of going to the non-communicable diseases.
Sure. I think that's a very interesting idea that you're putting forward in terms of wellness planning. Coming back to Sahil, do you think that we need better researchers or research which can convince people to move towards being mindful about their wellness? And also, how did you make it happen in Keto India?
Yeah, Akshara. So I think, really good discussions and really good pointers from everyone with regards to yoga, nutrition and wellness planning. First of all, I think I legit made notes from a lot of pointers that everybody said. The answer is yes. And, with regards to research, especially, I would probably want to talk a bit more about, the journey in terms of how I started the company, Keto India and Livofy in the first place, right? So my mom actually had a brain surgery in September 2017, right? And immediately after the surgery, when I noticed, as Manjari was pointing out, in the hospitals, the kind of food that was being fed, I started reading up about nutrition and healthcare, coming from an engineering background, right day zero, immediately after the surgery happened, to make sure that she gets the right kind of food, and I realized that a major chunk of the food that was being served in the first place was very contradictory to what the research said about why the surgery was needed in the first place and how do you prevent it from happening in the first place, right? And nothing made sense, right? And day zero was the surgery, and day one I was just, fighting with the doctors, discussing with the doctors in terms of how contradictory the food is, and this has inflammatory impact on my mom's health. This will cause insulin resistance, and this might cause the surgery to happen again, or cause the recurrence of the disease. And when I was off my job for a good 9 months and spent all my time researching on PubMed, and read all sort of clinical trials that there were, right. And coming from an engineering mindset, what I realized was that there was a huge contradiction from doctors in terms of acceptance of wellness and nutrition as a space. And understandably so, because there is not a lot of statistically significant data for it to become a standard of care in the first place, basically, right? And that's how any drug becomes a standard of care, is when you actually run phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4 of clinical trials, and when you say that I have statistically significantly been able to prove that if I divide my audience from 1,000 to 500 people to doing the protocol to 500 not doing the protocol, 500 saw an improvement, right? That's where you actually say, this is being a curative kind of protocol than just being a good to have, right? I realized, and as very well pointed out by Manjari in the discussion, was that nutrition and wellness, even in the clients that we've worked with, have had curative impacts without being on the standard of care in the first place also. And I realized that it is extremely important and imperative for wellness to be a place where extensive research goes, where we are able to provide statistically significant data for it to become a part of curative care, or being a good adjuvant even, for that matter, basically, right? So just to give you some context, like when I started reading about nutrition, my mom went through radiotherapy, and I got to know that the steroid that is used actually reduces the efficacy of the radiotherapy, because it acts as a poor radiosensitizer, right? And she was one of the few patients to do radiotherapy without steroids, in the need for steroids in the first place, purely through naturopathy, right? Extended that to a lot of supplementation that could be good adjuvant treatments. And my mom has still very healthy, and has constantly got clean scans for 4.5 years, right? So I kind of realized that data, research, and good literature is for not just nutrition being a good adjuvant, could be a good starting point to standard of care, and then being a good standalone treatment in the first place, or curative part of it needs a lot more data, right? And that is something that I definitely feel, right? The second point is that nutrition is very varied, right? So the kind of impact that an apple or wheat might have on my body will be very different from what it has on Akshara's body, or Fharzana's body, for that matter, right? And the personalized nature of it makes it even more complicated as well, right? It's a field in itself where personalization is a very major lever of nutrition, wellness, or healthcare in general, or yoga for that matter, right? So what kind of impact does an integrative or a wellness piece have on one's body needs even more detail to understand, like how does it's not a plain drug which is acting similarly on everybody. So both personalized and integrative pieces of healthcare need a fairly high amount of research to get data, for us to be able to have more data driven concrete discussions as we kind of proceed. So yeah.
Very well said. I think, yes, statistics definitely give some impact on acceptance. Fharzana, you have already raised this issue, and going forward, yoga has been restricted mostly to asanas, and that too, I feel, getting wrongly practiced in the form of power yoga, whereas yoga has to be practiced with patience. So whether such modifications of the original ideas have spoiled the core or brought a disbelief about the science in itself?
Thanks. I think that this whole discussion is going very well, and a lot of aspects of holistic health is coming out from all the varied speakers, esteemed speakers. I'd like to just share a little bit of the work I do for me to answer this question. So at Orange Ray, we are a complementary system, holistic system. We don't use any allopathic sciences, but we have all the alternative sciences like Ayurveda, homeopathy, acupuncture, yoga therapy, naturopathy, and even psychotherapy. Now, why do we need to do this? Because yoga, if we actually go by the authentic term of yoga, the way Patanjali spoke, it's an 8-step process. Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi. Now, what we are talking about when we talk about asana itself is only one part of the 8. So if you talk, it's 0.125%. Okay. That also is being done wrongly. Okay. So you can imagine we are not even scratching the surface of yoga. But having said that, I have nothing against people who want to, hold beer bottles and do some exercise. I would just request them to not call it yoga. That's all. They could call it whatever they wanted, But today, like we have beer yoga, we have something called tandoori chicken yoga. I mean, the list is endless, right? And yes, it has been used very lightly, frivolously, and flippantly. Having said that, what would I say? Social media, we have pros and cons, right? So today, if anything good also is being done, it goes all over the place, and the bad goes faster than that as well. So today, what generally people think of, yoga. So what they forget is actually there are three different things which I have classified in yoga. One is a yoga instructor who teaches you how to do a yoga asana. One is a yoga teacher who teaches you yoga in the entire philosophy of yoga. And the third is a yoga therapist who treats you through yoga. Okay. Now, the average, public doesn't know this. The average man doesn't know this, that they just think everything is a yoga instructor. But I think these are the classifications which are very necessary to explore, And because when my patients ask me that, ma'am, I'm already doing yoga, then why am I having back pain? So I explain to them saying that yoga to me would be equal to a chemist shop. Every medicine in a chemist shop is very useful, but that same person doesn't have to have all those medicines. Similarly, every yoga asana, we started out with 84 lakh asanas 5,000 years back. Today, we are practicing 84 mainly. But a patient can't even do 84. Why a patient? A normal person also should not be doing, because that's where, again, as Sahil said, customization comes in. You can't give everything to everybody, and that's what a therapist does. So if you're just practicing yoga, general yoga, doing with another 30 people, that also online, please be ready to get injured. Please be ready to have problems. It's not the instructor's fault. It is you cannot, one size fits all cannot be done. So we have to use what has been given to us wisely. The discretion is at our side. So I would say that the end user must understand what they're going for. So it's no point in blaming the science. It's us who are taking faulty decisions.
Right. Thanks for that. I think that distinction between instructor, teacher, and therapist is really useful. And in India, people turn to a lot of alternative medicine and therapy options for treatment. How can we collect data and determine the success ratio of the patients turning out to wellness practices? Rohit, would you like to share some thoughts on this?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Akshara, I think I would just pick up from where Arvind had left. So he had placed in a very important point that, there needs to be a plan, like we have a financial plan, we need a complete kind of a planning. So wellness is also something in the field which we need to plan, be it preventive health or be it a wellness activation, a simple activity as well. So coming from this understanding wherein, sourcing so many activations under wellness to corporates, we have tried to make a wellness calendar for them, So when I talk about a calendar, we have two kinds of prominent dates, or I would say events, which are actually classified month on month for the entire calendar year, right? So just not yoga day. So like say 21st June was declared as a yoga day, right? We have 14th November as a diabetic day. We have a cancer awareness week, So every month there is something, very prominent, which not only the general, I would say the corporates in general, functionally follow, even the retail customers, manufacturing units, and on ground, any kind of the employment workforce do take up these practices with their entire year's wellness budget. But that again is not organized. Why? Because it is very random from an HR perspective, right? Or from a cost perspective, they want to engage their employees. Like we say wellness, and then we compare it to an engagement activity, right? We want something to be done as a exciting, as a team building, or as a togetherness. But that should be different to what we pertain to, or something related to health should be different from engagement. But here the problem in the general, I would say, day-to-day functionality is both of them are being clubbed together. That's because of time, that could be because of cost, that could be because of the illustration practice, whatever X reason, right? So data generation is very important because now tools have come up over the last 4-5 years wherein we are seeing RAG analysis. Now, what is RAG? It is red, amber, green. Very simple analysis, right? So if somebody is in red, it means his lifestyle condition is not good. So there are predominant factors that are there done, like for example, a simple RBS or BP, BMI check, or a BMD check, bone mineral density check, or just a simple, I would say, fitness parameter. How much is your endurance? How many steps can you walk in it? Probably 5 minutes. So these are very small practices that are there, which can, commonly be done rather than getting too much into the IT solution. So there are certain RAG analysis wherein we try to tell a consumer, employee, or an aspirant that what exactly post a psychometric analysis, where does he actually stand? So if he's in a red category, the effort should be to bring it to amber. Somebody in amber should come down to green. So the goal is to come down to green and make him healthy. That is what the entire episode of our wellness activations do. And very rightly said, like Fharzana was talking about the differentiation in terms to a trainer, teacher, and the on-ground practices that we, adapt to. So it is very important that the experience of an industry specialist, like even if I talk about an ergonomist who's telling you the range of motion of exercises, right? He has to be very well equipped to understand that aspirant. Hello? Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So basically, when I talk about an ergonomist also, which we inculcate for different range of motion exercises, so it could be that very simple exercises could also hamper an individual, right? For example, I move my hand this way. For example, this is an exercise for me, but maybe your joint is not strong here, and for you this could be damaging as well. It's a very simple exercise. But for you, it might not be, maybe because your wrist is not right now very strong or inculcated to take it up. Yeah. So data is prominently very important. And when we go down to teams on ground, when we go down to individuals, when we go to a group of people, we definitely try to gather as much, data that we could, and we try to submit it to institutions, to schools, to different kind of industry segments, because this is a realistic figure. When we talk about, when we have done an analysis of a cabin crew, say for an airline industry, right? That person might be very differently enabled when it comes to an individual who's working at a ground staff. A person who's at the ticketing desk. Just talking about one segment right now, the airline industry. A pilot differentiates from a cabin crew, and a cabin crew also differentiates from a ground staff worker, right? And all these three individuals have actually got a different kind of lifestyle disorder and management. So I'm talking about just one segment. To actually organize that sector, it would take a humongous number of, I would say, a tax to get this in place. Absolutely. So I think, yes, forward from this, I will take it in my next discussion.
Sure. Thank you for that analogy with the airline industry. Manjari, I would like to take it forward from where you left earlier, because you talked about reversing the non-communicable diseases, even the chronic illnesses like cancer. So I would like you to throw a little bit light on how food can help in rectifying or reversing these issues, and what are the simplest things that one must take care of in terms of their meals.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Akshara. So, while Sahil was talking about, the standard care of treatment, in pharmacology, when they are researching a drug and when there are trials done on and clinical trials done on drugs, if, let's say, for example, there is a drug that can reduce the HbA1c by 0.5% in 6 months, I mean, it's called a revolutionary drug, and there is research papers and papers written on that, and it becomes the newest molecule. With food, in 3 months, you could bring down a person's HbA1c from 10 to absolutely normal, 5.5, which is a normal HbA1c. And that is, I mean, we're not even talking about a 0.5 or a margin. We're talking about correcting a completely, odd HbA1c back to normal. But sadly, it has not been documented, nor there has been so much of push about this whole concept, because unlike pharmacology, it does not make a lot of business sense in the real world. It becomes for a person who's practicing nutrition or wellness, it becomes a very major modality, even for people who are receiving it, because it may help them reduce their dependence on drugs. It may help them, correct a lot of conditions. But for the industry per se, but for business per se, it's still not become a very, very, revenue generating or, business thing. So what I would say is that there are a few things that people have to primarily understand about food, which is that unlike what people do which is, just bracket food into proteins, fats, carbohydrates, vitamins, and minerals, if we try and tell our people to look at food at a very basic level, just look at food in two categories. One category of food which helps and sort of works in harmony with the human biochemistry, and the other category of food which causes inflammation, which causes the biochemistry to get disrupted. And so you could clearly pick up any food and put it in one of those categories. It's either healing for the body or it's inflammatory. And that is a simple thing, so we know that simple sugars, processed carbs, refined things, anything which is processed, packaged, tinned, canned by category, anything which is high on a pesticide, insecticide load, anything which is animal product, most of the time, very few animal products can claim to be anti-inflammatory, anything which is, quickly broken down into sugar in the body, anything which is not very native or natural or ethnic to where you were growing up, which does not really resonate with your genetic composition. All these things are inflammatory, So everything, just giving you an example, if you look at fats, there's a lot of talk about, Sahil is from Keto, where they're saying fat is good for you, which is actually the truth. The point is, if you look at fat, in the last 50 years, we've eaten the type of fat that we never ate for thousands of years. The type of refined processed oils that we eat now, the type of mayonnaise and industrial butter and industrial spreads that we eat now was something that nobody even consumed 100 years back or 50 years back. White sugar didn't exist 150 years back. There were no sugar mills. Do you know that the first time they made white sugar, you had to buy it on a pharmaceutical prescription? It was sold in pharmacies, white sugar. Cut to today, it's every food that you eat, So the thing is that if we can easily identify food which is good for our bodies and food which is not good for our bodies, and if we could just work on those basic principles, we could at least look at wellness. But when we're looking at the clinical bit of nutrition, where we're looking at using food to reverse a condition, then it becomes a little more protocol driven. Then it becomes a little more specific. For example, another very, very, very potent concept of food is fasting. Do you know that just fasting is almost 50% of your job done when you're looking at reversing a cardiometabolic condition? Because when you fast, you allow the body to do much more than digest, assimilate, and process food. You're allowing the body to heal itself. Insulin resistance, increase in somatotropic hormone, increase in stem cells, reduction in all forms of dead, decaying, misbehaving, precancerous, pre-tumor cells. This is all what happens when you're fasting. So simple concepts of fasting, not eating too much, that 80-20 rule of eating 60 to 80% of your appetite, never overeating, following the sun cycle, trying to eat and sleep with the sun, and trying only to eat real food, things that you have complete control. Just because the industry says that this is high in iron or low in saturated fat or high in fiber, do not use that. Get back to real food. So these are simple concepts, but they are extremely powerful. Another example is, in cancer, for example, we know that fasting, the cancer cells are weak cells and they require a lot of quick supply of energy to multiply. For the tumor to multiply effectively, you need to feed it sugar, literally. And sugar could be sugar, it could be sweet fruits, it could be processed food, it could be white rice, white flour, all of it is sugar, or dairy. So when you're not giving sugar to a person with cancer at all, the cells don't have the quick energy to multiply. So you can literally kill cancer by fasting, by oxygenating the tissue, and by reducing the intake of carbs or stopping the intake of carbs. And this is so effective. We use something called the fasting mimicking diet for our cancer patients. Also, cancer patients are sometimes very, very cachexic, so they have a lot of muscle loss, they have a lot of, they are very frail because of the trauma of chemo radiotherapy. So we can't fast them completely, so we mimic fasting. So we use something called the fasting mimicking diet, where you're giving the benefit of fasting without actually fasting the patient. So to sum this up, essentially simple concepts in nutrition that are extremely potent are: 1, fasting; 2, not eating many times or eating too much; 3, eating from that group of foods which is more real, does not come out from the industry, does not have simple carbs or sugar, is not processed or packaged, is more ethnic to where you come from, because it also, speaks to your genes more well. Also, it's real in every sense of the word. So it's real food, it grows on plants, And so we tell our patients, a very simple line: do not eat less. Eat less often, mostly plants. If you could do that, eat less often and mostly plants, you're doing quite well. So yeah, and of course then, but when we come to disease management or disease reversal, then it becomes a little more. And then we also combine other things with it, So you have to look at the gut, you have to look at, correcting the gut microbiome, you have to look at what sort of, people who have acidity, constipation, reflux, people who are not digesting, have malabsorption. So all that also has to be addressed at the same time.
Beautifully said. I think a lot of takeaways for everyone who is listening to this. Moving forward, I would like to touch upon another major issue that is becoming a turmoil in the society, that is mental health. Stress is impacting nearly 50% of the employees working in the organizations. So what do you think could be game changer in bringing a paradigm shift in this space? Arvind, since you are working something in this space.
Sure, Akshaya. I think earlier you did talk of lifestyle diseases, and now I think probably I'll also touch upon the mental health. If you look at it from a more comprehensive view, I think they are very closely interrelated, because we all know stress and the stress-related maladies are the primary cause for most of our diabetes, hypertension, and things like that. So what that actually takes us to, something that is an emerging field today, is the mind-body medicine. So I think what probably we need to do is to look at both the mental health as well as our hypertension, diabetic, and all other cardiac and lifestyle diseases on a mind-body continuum, and something that is a mind-body interface. There is another suggestion at this point of time that I have, where I would like to continue or take it forward where Manjari left, is that I think when we talk of mental health and say cardiac diseases, from the outside it might appear that they are those independent diseases, maladies, but we'll have to understand that the mind-body interface, they are somehow interrelated. And what we need to do for that is to probably have an integration of our traditional medical system versus the modern medical system. And can we look at, and if you look at it that way, is to bringing in modern medical system tools back into the traditional systems. Can we use, because we all today understand, okay, half of my career, I have worked in building technologies for critical care applications. So I spent years and years around ICUs and inside ICUs. For the last 1 decade or so, I'm very closely looking at stress and stress-related disorders. So probably I have benefit of looking at both sides of the coin. And with that confidence, I can say that they are definitely interrelated. And unless we look at that interface, unless we look at that integration, I think these solutions would not be all that easy to come by. Because we all know that today anxiety disorders, mental disorders show up certain biomarkers at the physiological level, at the endocrine or the hormonal level. They also show up at the neurological level. And a lot of such tools are available today at the modern medicine. Can we take them back into the traditional medicine when we look at psychology, when we look at psychometric tests and things like that? The other way around is because traditional science has been always in preventive measures, whereas the modern science is very much focused on the curative science. I think today we need a combination of all of those two systems together. We need to break those silos and set aside our mindsets and start digging or start looking at this interchange and each other side and start picking up the right things together. So in my opinion, to address the mental health issues, if we start using the modern medicine tools, we have today physiological diagnostic tools which can give us much early indications of somebody is prone or somebody is passing through the anxiety disorders or stress disorders. We have tools on the hormonal markers, pathological tests are available. Can we make them mainstream? Now, I also quickly want to touch upon one more topic because there had been certain objections or the concerns raised around it that come from the modern side that you use the test very often just for the commercial purposes. Okay? But on the other side, I think we use as complex a technology as AI and stuff like that for our social communication. In my opinion, what's wrong using this technology for health? Because at the end of the day, the health is so important than our social communication, right? And what would happen is today, many of these technologies could appear to be pricey, but I think as the mass base increases and the application increases, I think that objection to the cost and resource consumption hopefully will come down in the time to come. So I think my probably proposition is this integration at the mind-body interface as an tool to address both the lifestyle diseases as well as the mental health diseases.
Very, very nicely intertwined, non-communicable diseases, mental health, stress, and so on. Going to the next round of discussions, I request all the panelists to restrict the responses for 2 minutes in the interest of time. Sahil, what is the underlying reason why these chronic issues like diabetes, PCOS, thyroid, obesity happens in the first place? Can you throw on the causative factors and how can we leverage nutrition wellness, as Manjari has already spoken a little bit about it? What are your take on that?
Yeah, so I think thanks for the question, Akshara. I think there are multiple reasons around why we've seen these chronic ailments happening in the first place. But one of the major reasons which Manjari pointed out is actually underlying insulin resistance. That is being one of the major reasons or contributing factors to type 2 diabetes in case of people suffering from diabetes, or women with PCOS who have excess male hormone levels like androgen or testosterone levels. That is one of the major contributors that we've seen. A lot of micronutrient deficiencies, which we've seen in people with hypothyroidism, for example, zinc, selenium, iodine being major contributing factors in hypothyroidism, right? Again, insulin resistance being a major contributor even in high cholesterol, or people calling cholesterol as bad, but cholesterol actually becomes bad when it's inflamed, right? It gets inflamed when you actually have underlying insulin resistance in the body, right? So, underlying insulin resistance is one of the major contributors that we've seen. The second contributor that we've seen is underlying inflammation in the body. That is a huge contributor to not just these chronic ailments, but people with cancer care issues also, right? And answering your second part of the question is that, how do you kind of prevent it, or how do you make sure that it does not happen going forward? The first step for us is to actually know that, these are the underlying issues, that underlying hormonal issues that are triggering the chronic ailments in the first place, which is what a drug like a metformin or a contraceptive pill in terms of regularizing period cycles would do. So we need to first, empathize with the fact that these issues are mostly hormonal. And the second is that you can't improve what you can't measure, right? So the second and most important thing is to actually start measuring all the hormonal markers that could be, contributing factors to these chronic ailments in the first place, right? And the problem is that most of this knowledge is actually in silos, which is like a doctor knowing the fact that a chronic ailment happens because of a certain reason, and a nutritionist giving a second line of thought, basically, right? So there has to be one contact point through which this information flows to the patient, so they understand the fact that there are certain underlying hormonal issues that are causing this issue in the first place. Measuring that first, and then figuring out the right kind of nutrition, supplementation, or medication if needed, right? Which becomes a very integrative kind of a care protocol, is what I feel on the curative side. On the preventive side, regularly measuring what your underlying hormones are and what could kind of cause a bigger issue going forward, right? I think Manjari mentioned about cancer care, right? So if you don't measure your HSCRP or CRP markers, for example, which is a C-reactive or inflammatory marker, you will not know that you're at risk for cancer, right? There could be other markers as well, but I'm just giving an example, right? So I think measuring is a great start, and then consuming the right kind of nutrition or supplementation, and not being very averse to the idea that supplementation is medication, right? So naturopathic supplementation can be highly anti-inflammatory. So not being very averse to the idea of consuming supplements would be a great way to kind of, prevent these chronic ailments from happening in the first place. So yeah.
Okay. That's an interesting thought, that we have to measure right from hormones to everything, so that we are aware where we are and where we stand. Fharzana, as you have involved yourself in research as well as a practitioner, my question to you is, how can eminent healthcare professionals back up healthcare and wellness programs for patients, students, and employees?
Okay, thanks, Akshara. The answer, as Mr. Arvind also said, and Sahil said, and all my fellow panelists have been talking about, is the answer lies in integrative healthcare. Now, I will just tell you what are the integrative healthcare. Basically, we all know is combining traditional care with the complementary therapies. Now, how does it help the end consumer? It betters the outcome, number one. It reduces health costs drastically. It looks at the person as a whole, body, mind, and emotions. And so there is no reductionist attitude over here at all. So these are the benefits, and not only it benefits the end patient, it benefits the family, it benefits the caregivers, it benefits the society and the nation as a whole. Now, I'll tell you, in my practice, I see now how can doctors help in this? Now, if we are using integrative healthcare, I would say that whether it is an oncologist or a cardiologist or an endocrinologist or a gynecologist, everybody can use complementary therapies. I would go as to say complementary therapy is like a zero. You add it to anything and you make the effect 10x. Okay, though it has no substance of its own, but that's what we can do. So now, like for example, I see a lot of musculoskeletal pain. So low back pain, cervical disorders, frozen shoulders. It's very common in corporate people. The main reason is a combination of posture, repetitive muscle injury, and stress. So the three things. Now, when they just go to an ortho, I'm using this as an example. When they go to an ortho, they're only dealing with the repetitive stress injury. Okay, so they put them on to the physiotherapist. They just give them some, IFT and stuff like that. But it doesn't solve the problem because the posture has not been corrected, their ergonomics has not been corrected, and the stress part has not been dealt with. So it keeps recurring again and again. So that is why we need integrative healthcare. So it would be just imagine this whole picture where you have orthopedics having not only physiotherapists, but having yoga therapists and maybe even having nutritionists because they may be low on protein levels, they may be low on vitamin D, so many things, right? So just imagine that scenario. Wouldn't that be so holistic? So that is where doctors and super specialists can help us. So suddenly we've seen that in healthcare compared to 50 years back when I used to be a kid, we used to go to our GP for small problems. Today, when we have a small indigestion, you straight away go to the surgical gastroenterologist, not even the medical one, right? So what does he do? He is going to cut you. right? So where is that GP gone? Why don't we get more of GPs, and why don't we get people who will refer to? We don't need to straight away go to step 5, right? We can always address these issues at step 1 itself. So let's look at that, and I think that's where all the doctors can help this. It's a win-win situation. It'll give more access to healthcare, and we can save a lot of heartache and save a lot of money as well.
Wonderful. I think you brought it in a very holistic way that integrative health is the solution for all these problems. And coming to Rohit, you keep conducting various wellness programs for individuals and organizations. So can wellness programs help in modifying behavior and help patients withstand or resist or insulate themselves from other mental illnesses as well?
So yes, Akshara, I think definitely it can bring in a lot of different, in fact, I would say as a differentiation aspect. Why? Because giving you a very prominent example, one of our major clients, you must have heard about these groups. I mean, all of us have heard about these groups like Lifestyle, Shoppers Stop, the guys who work at the store. So if you see the ratio for last 2.5, 3 years, and if you see the kind of data analysis coming in from these people, from the group head HRs as well, it has been very sad to actually, categorize this, that people are committing suicide. There are suicidal cases to a very great extent, and in fact, the entire organization is very worried that, executives, sales people, or, people who are just managing storekeepers who are between the age of 18, 19, 20, or maybe latest of 24, 25, if they're like a mid managerial aspect, the kind of sensitivity to this entire, I would say, complete phenomenal changes that we are actually seeing, not only COVID being an impact to the society and, obviously addressing our concerns in a very great way. But this era had started somewhat in 2018 end, November, December, almost that is wherein we had got a lot of queries wherein people were having major concerns in terms to competitiveness, in terms to the stress levels increasing, and people were not in a condition to talk about it as well, So I would say, we also implemented concepts like DAS. DAS is like depression, anxiety, stress scale, So there is a 40 to 42 questionnaire, which is just asked, which a normal psychologist, you don't even need a clinical expert in that. Just a coach, a lifestyle coach or a psychologist can just have a small interaction with you and understand how, your entire journey of a day or maybe just a week, and how you exactly feel, balancing your personal and professional life, how you feel, so that 10 minutes of conversation and evaluation through that 42 questionnaires actually reduced in 12 to 13% of the ratio in 6 months.
Oh.
So that is the kind of impact we have seen as a change in the corporate era, especially in the manufacturing, retail, and I would say these multiplexes. So even if I name PVR, the guy behind the camera, who's trying to actually shoot the entire movie, he's also under immense stress. So look, these are the ground challenges. We are not even aware of these. We are just, so as a whole, if I see the wellness industry definitely is talking about the overall, concerns, and we're trying to put in a lot of, I would say, concentration of focus on the bigger chunk of the concerns. But when you go down to the grassroots level, there is a difference, I would say a very differentiated approach of standardization seen there.
Absolutely.
So with this, I think as at Infinite, we are trying to, obviously bring in infinite changes in the wellness and healthcare space. So I think we can all be infinite and look forward to make this a brilliant journey ahead. Thank you.
Right. And in fact, I also see that mental health issues are there right from slums to celebrities. So
Correct.
it's there
Absolutely.
across the social segments, class, caste, race, gender, everywhere.
Very true. Very true.
And being a psychologist, I am very much interested in the aspect of mental health, and I would like to look at it in a different perspective with Manjari. How do you see food can contribute for mental wellness?
So the entire body is like this big orchestra, and your gut is the guy who's playing the orchestra, and the gut is connected to the brain by the second biggest nerve in our body, the vagus nerve. So the gut and the brain talk to each other. There is a gut-brain axis. If you're not doing great in your stomach, if you're not absorbing nutrients, not eating the right food, the right type of neurotransmitters are not created. There is a reduction in the production of serotonins, dopamines, the happy hormones that we need. Yes? So it's a very direct correlationship. I mean, like we talk of the immune system and the gut, so is our neurotransmitter system and the gut. I mean, there's enough and more said about how foods can be sources of even things like choline, which is the acetylcholine, which is a neurotransmitter. So you can eat food rich in alpha lipoic acid and choline. If you're short on biotin, there'll be a lot of neurotransmitter reduction in the body. So what we are eating is not just fueling our physiological health, but is also fueling our mental health in many, many ways. And, I'd like to say a small example here. So in today's world, as people become more and more individual and, where they're moving out of their homes, going to different cities. I mean, I have a friend whose 19-year-old daughter moved to London to study. When you do that little girl comes back to a small room, eats her own food alone. There is a huge impact of that on the body physiologically, which eventually also affects the mental health. So it's not just being lonely that they feel depressed. There is a reduction there is a deterioration in the quality of food that they eat, because that's what they have access to. And with that takeaway food, food on the go sort of a thing that people live with when they're studying or in dorms or, doing such work, they're highly malnourished with the right nutrients. They're not eating the right fats. And obviously that contributes to mental health conditions. One of the things, for example, now, of course, people talk about so many things, including ashwagandha, shilajit, bacopa. We know there are some things called the nootropics, a category of food ingredients that can work on your psychosomatic brain health, mental health. And that also needs to be, that was a part of our systems. By the way, Sahil, I think Fharzana, somebody was mentioning about, the little bit of the supplements, herbals, botanicals that people, look at it at drugs and get a little perturbed if you ask them to take it. But even if you look at a basic Ayurveda, naturopathy sciences, there is an element of herbs that is built into those sciences. Yes. So therefore, a lot of relationship between food and mental health, there is a very, very clear relationship. And there are certain foods, though people mostly think that caffeine and chocolate are feel-good foods, there are many more. A nice, good salad with some nuts and fats can also make you feel really good. Of course, the last bit I'd say, Akshara, is that, the bonhomie of eating a meal with your friends and family is always better than sitting in a corner and eating some salad, So
Brilliantly.
How we eat and with whom we eat is also very important.
Yes, it's brilliantly said. Thank you for that. And coming to the last question of the panel discussion today, Arvind, what is your opinion about technological intervention in transforming the idea of wellness in the modern world?
Yeah, Akshara, talking about the technology, I think this session would not be complete unless we talk about digitization. And I'm not saying that just for the sake of fashion or just because it's a flavor of the day. I think we have recent certain examples. Let's look at the case of our corona pandemic. I think the kind of numbers, real-time numbers, those were available about the cases and deaths and being published on a daily basis has definitely largely influenced the people's behavior. And I believe that is one cause for controlling this pandemic in a shorter time span. The other side, looking at it, whenever we missed the data, I think we had catastrophes. Something similar happened during the second wave. I know for sure because I was tracking the data that the early signs emerged of the second wave somewhere in the second week of January. And the bigger wave hit us in the last week of March, if somebody would have been, or the policymakers would have detected that early rise in the second week of March, I think the further trouble could have been much reduced. So I think my proposition here is if we can bring in this digitization and data, even in the wellness domain, and then the policymakers are aware of the actual number of cases which are being treated of stress, anxiety, mental disorders, and overall the wellness issues. And then along with that, if we have the real-time data, all the therapists, all the people working in this area, if we can get the data together in real life as to what therapies are giving what kind of results, and we make the whole paradigm as a data-centric, I think it will help us change this scenario much faster than doing it without the data.
Completely agree. I think, that is where we lagged to even while addressing the pandemic. So I completely agree. And I think it was a very enriching panel discussion. Right from we started from, we all agreed that there is a lack of awareness among the people towards wellness. We got the pointers like wellness planning, just like financial planning or career planning, to the differentiation between yoga instructor, teacher, therapist, to another new thing that white sugar was something that was sold in the pharmacy and not in the regular shop. So it was a very enriching session, and I think we all need to be mindful and measuring what we eat, what is happening in our body, and be aware of where we are in terms of wellness, so that we can take care of ourselves and lead a good life. Quality of life can be ensured with that. Chandan, there are two questions. Do you suggest to ask? Do we have time, or?
I think we already have panel, the next panel with us, Akshara. So let us.
That can be answered on a text.
Sure.
Yes. Thank you so much for ArdorComm Media Group for conducting this panel discussion. It was really enriching experience for all of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you for having us. Thank you for having us, Akshara.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for making this making justice to the panel topic which we had decided. And believe me, getting speakers for a certain panel, it's not a random work. We do a lot of research work through LinkedIn, through Facebook, through contacts and whatever sources. We try to bring the variety of the experience and expertise. You can see over here the kind of experience Arvind ji is having. So under his guidance and the vision which he had of driving the wellness sectors, and the young entrepreneurs who like us who are witnessing and seeing him as an idol, and we are moving ahead. Believe me, all the panel topics which we decided for this entire 2 day was not a mix of different segments. We had a separate session on CIO, CTOs. We had a separate session on Ayush. We had a separate session on pharmacy, separate session on hospital and clinics, and a separate session on wellness, which you just did a right justice to this. I was so much involved in every speak, and I can see the enthusiasm and energy of everybody, of Rohit, of Manjari ji, of Fharzana, of Akshara. Akshara, you did a wonderful moderation. The next moderator for my event will be you, for whatever topic I will be deciding.
Sure.
Thank you. See, they have so much of expertise in their own domain. Getting the best, outcome until unless you throw a right question to the right person, it is very difficult. So this is a good job which you've done. Sahil, I really salute for the kind of work which you're doing in such a young age. Keto, our celebrity guest was just there. I was confusing, do I have another celebrity guest of Keto in India over here? So Keto and Keto were just matching to my senses. I just confirmed with the team. Thank you so much, Sahil, for making this session a very lively and wonderful session. If the session ends with a smiling face, what best I can expect from this? So let us do one small honors. Let us recognize your contribution by felicitating you all on this panel. Certificate of appreciation to Manjari Chandra ji, the owner and founder of Manjari Wellness. Thank you, ma'am. Next. token of thanks to Mr. Sahil Pruthi, the founder of Keto India. Present this certificate to Mr. Rohit Dingra, the founder and CEO of Infinite Health Studios. Congratulations, Rohit.
Thank you.
Certificate of appreciation to Ms. Fharzana Siraj, the founder of Orange Day Holistic Private Limited. Congratulations, Fharzana.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Certificate of appreciation to our senior eminent panel speaker, Mr. Arvind Savargaonkar ji, the CEO of Streben Healthcare. Congratulations, sir.
Thank you, Chandan, and it's been my pleasure.
And we present this token of thanks to Mr. Akshara Damle, is the founder of ManoSamvaada, for participating as a distinguished speaker. Thank you, Akshara.
Thank you. Thank you so much.